we have already met before for your on Saturday before your seminar. So today I'll be taking up a topic which is quite important for teachers, because we know communication is the core of our profession. The main job of teachers is to communicate. Okay? Through communication, we pass on information, we maintain relationship with our students, our colleagues, with our stakeholders, parents. Okay, so communication forms the core of our profession, for that matter. So there are 4 pillars of communication, which we call them as LSRW. Most of the English teachers will know about it, because these are the 4 skills they emphasize on while teaching any language, for that matter. So this LSRW is nothing but an abbreviation for listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Okay? So let us take up these 4 skills, which are quite essential for teachers, as well as having the knowledge. With having the knowledge of these 4 skills, it is also the job of the teachers to develop these 4 skills in our students too, because if they have to lead a quality life, if they have to maintain good interpersonal relationships, if they have to succeed in their work life, professional life, or even in their family life or in the society, these are the 4 skills which they have to master. Okay? So to begin with, we know that communication is the key to all forms of life, not only human beings. We know that animals also communicate, humans communicate, and recently it has been seen that even plants too communicate with each other. And it has been seen that they secrete some special chemicals into the soil, where they communicate through their root zones. Okay? So all forms of life, for that matter, communicate with each other. And it is the essence of life. It is all around us. Just think about a day where you do not communicate with anybody. Okay? As soon as we get up, the first thing after we wake up, maybe we switch on the first thing we feel for is to communicate with somebody. Maybe the spouse in the family, the children in the family, the parents in the family, or if all are sleeping, the first thing we do is go on the radio or the television. Okay? Maybe for entertainment, we want to listen to some music, or we want to listen to the news in the morning. Okay? So somehow the day we start is with either we communicating with others, or we receiving communication from others, maybe through interpersonal relationship, or face-to-face communication, or it may be communication through the radio, through the television, through the telephone. Okay? Or many of them even have the habit of reading the newspaper in the beginning. Okay? Or when we are passing through on some roads, we also read some advertisement boards where many companies want to advertise and communicate about their products to us. Okay? Or we may be even listening to certain announcements when we go to a public place. So communication forms the essence of our life. It is essential for all individuals, okay? Whether it be with our friends, whether it be with our family members, whether it be with our colleagues, or whether it be with our spouse, parents, or anybody for that matter. Okay? Even sometimes when we are meeting someone for a very short while, and then even if they don't speak out, we just look at each other's face, and even when we maintain silence, we are communicating to each other. Maybe by looking at somebody's face and they smile at you, then it is an avenue for they are creating to speak with each other. Okay? Or they turn off their face when we are seeing or looking at them, then we have to understand that they do not want to speak to us. That is also a communication. When they don't even want to speak to us, they are communicating that to us by remaining silent or moving away from us. Okay? So even in silence, people are communicating with each other. When we think of our workplace, okay, if we have to complete some tasks, or if we have to build a relationship with our colleagues, if we have to share our experiences with each other, communication is the one thing which is needed to connect people whether it be a workplace or whether it be our family. Okay? So why do we communicate? We communicate with the purpose of expressing our feelings, or with the purpose of passing on some information, or with the purpose of sharing our thoughts or feelings. So what is communication? Communication is the act of transferring information from information, it may be information, it may be feelings, it may be emotions, but transferring something from one person to another. Okay? And it is very much needed in our everyday life. Communication, whether it is being in the form of a spoken or oral language, or it can be in the form of in the written form, or it can not be either spoken or written, it can be in the form of non-verbal language through our gestures, through our body language, through our silence, through our eye contact, through the posture we stand or sit. Okay? Everything communicates. Just the presence of one person in the avenue, or in the presence of another person, or presence of two persons together, is just enough for us to communicate, even if we don't utter a single word. And we know how much difficult it is for us to stay in isolation, staying away from society, staying out from our family, friends, and colleagues. It is really very difficult for us, especially if we are not having any form of communication, or if we are not connected to each other through any form of media. Then we know life in isolation is very difficult, and this all of us have experienced when it has come to this situation where we had COVID-19 in all parts of the world. Okay? Then we have felt the need to engage ourselves communicating with people. Just imagine the situation where we were isolated in our homes, and then if we did not have any form of media to communicate with each other, it would be really very horrible for us to just even pass our time during this situation. So communication is fundamental to the existence, or even for the survival of humans, and even the survivals of different organizations and institutions. Okay? Then you might have seen small young children who have, or a child who even doesn't know language, who doesn't know how to communicate. If you just observe a child when it wants to tell you, even before it is 1 year old, if it has not learned language, if it has to communicate something to you, and it is trying to tell you something, and you are not able to understand what the child is saying, maybe after repeated communication, repeated ways of trying to tell you what it wants, and we are not understanding it, you just see how the child gets frustrated. Okay? So this is where we come to know how much communication, that to effective means of communication, is important. And then we also see the role of the receiver here. Okay? It's not only the role of the speaker or the sender of the message, it is also the role of the receiver, which is quite important to make the communication process effective. When do we say that the communication process is effective? Only when the receiver understands what the message the speaker wants to send, as he intends it to us to understand it. Okay? So communication can be effective only when both of them, the receiver as well as the speaker, play their roles. Okay? Now coming to effective communication. Effective communication is really a challenge. As I told you, it is both the receiver also who has to put the efforts in order to make the process of communication effective, and it is also equally the speaker who has to put in more efforts so that he will encode the message and then send it to the, and then even the selection of the media through which he will send the message also is quite important. And then the planning which he makes to deliver the message, okay, all these are quite important. And then it is the speaker as well as the receiver who will be playing equal parts in making the communication process effective. Now, for example, I utter the word automobile. Okay? As soon as I say the word automobile, what comes to your mind?
Vehicles.
Pictures of vehicles.
Okay, one thing. Now what I want to do is either, now you have got a picture of an automobile in your mind. Okay. I'll just give you a minute. You can either draw whatever you has come to your mind, or you can just write some 4 to 5 lines on what has come to your mind. So we will just take a minute. Okay. Now, if you are done with it, if you have drawn, can you just hold whatever drawings you have made to the camera, or can you just describe about whatever you have written in 4 or 5 lines?
Madam Shiva Prasad here.
Yeah, Dr. Shiva Prasad.
I have not drawn any picture, but I have written 2 points.
Yeah.
Word automobile for me refers to vehicles on the road. The noise coming out of the vehicles. Then people traveling. My vehicles, which I possess. It is goods transportation. And automobile is an industry.
Industry, okay.
Thank you.
Anybody? Yeah, thank you, Dr. Shiva Prasad. Anybody else? Dr. Mamta, if you have written anything? Yeah.
Namaste, ma'am. Dr. Ashwini here.
Yeah, Dr. Ashwini, yes.
Ma'am, as soon as I think automobile, it comes to my mind regarding my vehicle itself. And these are the following lines that are associated with it. Whenever I think about that, I'm associated with it emotionally, and it helps me in both the ways. And I can't imagine without it. And it cannot be running it cannot be run, the life cannot be run very smoothly without it. These are the lines that I have started.
Okay, what is your vehicle? Can we know?
Zest, ma'am. Two-wheeler.
Yeah, which is the two-wheeler?
Zest, ma'am. Zest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Hello, ma'am. I'm Tanuja.
Yeah, Tanuja, yes.
Ma'am, I remembered a vehicle first, and then I remembered my vehicle, two-wheeler, and later I started relating auto and mobile. So I got a picture of auto, and then mobile, especially the basic mobile.
Okay. This is quite interesting, Dr. Tanuja. You have split the word auto and mobile, drawn a picture of an auto and a mobile. Okay. A very rare response which I have got till now. Okay. Then anybody else?
Madam.
Yeah, Dr. Suvarna. Yeah.
Like Tanuja madam, I got idea in my mind. Auto means automatically it takes me like that. Vehicle means it's for ease movement, and it can help me to reach my destination automatically, and it gives a comfort. And one more I remembered, without I forgot to apply brake when I started my riding.
Okay, started to learn.
Two-wheeler. So out of some anxiety, I left the vehicle. I was safe, but
the vehicle was damaged.
So automatically it went run off from me. And I remembered. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Now just see, this is what I want to communicate. What I want to tell you is, there is a message in between both of us. Now I'm the sender sending you some message, and you are at the receiving end trying to understand or receive what I am trying to encode and send it to you. You have to decode. Now what? I have something in my mind when I utter the word automobile. Okay. Now I'll just show you what was in my mind when I said automobile. Okay. We will check whether what I intend you to understand and what you understood are really the same. Okay. When I said automobile, okay, this was what I meant. What I meant was, as in the automobile industry, something new is at present in India is the hybrid car, okay, which can run on petrol as well as electricity and automatically switch on to electricity, and when the battery is low, automatically can switch on to petrol. Okay. So when I was mentioning about automobile, this is what I had in my mind. Okay. So what I'm trying to communicate here is, when the sender is giving a word or a symbol of communication, and when I intend that word to be understood in some way, the listener also should understand or take the word in a similar way, or decode the word in a similar way in which I intend him to understand or take the word. Okay. So I come to this now there is one more example here. When I say put orange, what do you understand? This is what I have told, put orange.
Like putting a fruit in a bag, probably.
Okay, so one understands that putting a fruit in a bag. Anybody else?
Put orange color to the picture.
Okay, put orange. There is a picture, and then you want, I'm asking you to put a orange color. Okay. Now, see, there are two people who have taken the meaning in two different ways. Orange can be a thing or a fruit. Orange can be a color. But the symbol in the language or the word in the language orange, what I meant can be different. Okay? So there is a triangle called the semantic triangle. There are three things here in the triangle. The first here is the term, that is the term or the word which is orange. It can stand for a thing. It can be the color or it can be the fruit. Now the receiver and the sender have this concept of the word orange. Okay? You're understanding this? Now, what is this semantic triangle? The semantic triangle was given by Charles K. Ogden and Ivor Armstrong Richards. Okay? They identified that understanding comes from within the people. Okay? We always think that understanding comes from the words, but they say that understanding comes from within people rather than from the words they just interpret. So they have set a model called the triangle of meaning. This triangle of meaning is called the semantic triangle. For better understanding of how language works and also for basically to give a theory of science, they have brought out this triangle of meaning. This triangle is intended to show the word's relationship between the thoughts and the things. There are three things here: the word, the symbol or the sign. And the second thing is the thought process or the concept formation which has happened in the minds of the sender as well as the receiver. And the third thing is the actual thing which we are trying to communicate. Okay? So three things: the word, the thought, and the things. These three things, this semantic triangle shows the direct relationship between the words, the thoughts, and also tries to show the relationship between the thoughts and the thing. If you look at the triangle, the referent is the thing, means to which we are referring to. The orange was what I was referring to. That was the thing. The word orange was the sign. Okay. And the thought process of the receiver, okay, should be the same as the thought process of the sender to understand what I refer to. Okay. So the referent needs some prior experience and reference about the word if he has to understand what I meant by the word. Okay. So this is a semantic triangle. Now, the physical object, which can be a cat, the word or the symbol is the cat, and our previous experiences give us an opportunity to understand it. Just imagine if, suppose this cat, instead of using the word cat, if we refer this, if we have used the word car from the beginning to call this thing, then the word car would have referred to cat. Okay? So it's like that. So words or language are nothing but symbols which will refer to the thing or whichever referent we are trying to refer to. So this reference should be the same in the minds of the receiver as well as in the brains of the sender as well. Okay. So this is what is the semantic triangle. This is also called the meaning of meaning model. Okay. Now there are 4 skills if we have to make communication effective. These skills are nothing but the listening skills, the speaking skills, the reading skills, and the writing skills. These form the 4 pillars of the communication process. So we will go one after the other. The first skill which I'll be referring to today is the listening skill. And we know language is a very effective tool which humans use to communicate. It can be ideas, thoughts, and emotions. And in any professional setting for that matter, if we have to make friends, build relationships, and also build, perform our tasks confidently, then we will have to possess these 4 skills. These 4 skills are categorized into 2 types of skills. The first 2, that is the listening and the reading, they are skills which we use to receive information. So these are called the receptive skills. Listening and reading, which are used to receive information, are called the receptive skills. And speaking and writing, these skills which act as channels for sending of the information by the speaker, they are called the productive skills. So these 4 skills are categorized into receptive skills and productive skills. Receptive are listening and reading, productive are speaking and writing. Also, listening and speaking come under the oral skills, and reading and writing come under the written skills. Okay. So listening and reading, which are said to be the receptive skills, are also called input skills because they input the information. Speaking and writing, which are the productive skills, are also said to be the output skills because they send out information. Okay. Now we take up the first skill, that is the listening skill. Now, making communication interesting and effective is not only the role of the speaker, because as soon as we say that we are listening to something, we just think that the listener doesn't have any role. You can just go and sit in the, and it is, we always expect the speaker to put in efforts. And we always expect the role of the speaker to be quite important in the process of communication. We think it is for the speaker to plan, it is for the speaker to deliver the information, and we think the listener role is only to be passively receiving whatever the speaker sends. Okay? So we always think that the speaker has the active role and the listener has the passive role, but it is not so. If the communication has to be interesting and effective, then both the listener and the speaker have to actively take part in this process of communication. Now, listening is a very quite important skill which we need to possess. All of us need to possess. How well we listen. Okay? If all are sitting in a class, it is not that all of them have the equal skills of listening. Okay? Somebody may have very good skills of listening and they will be able to take in or comprehend more information than the person who has lower listening skills. Okay? And then listening skills also doesn't mean only taking in information. Listening skills also includes the way we give feedback to the speaker, the way we respond to the speaker, so that we also make the process interesting for the speaker. What we always think is it is only the job of the speaker to make the communication process interesting. It is not so. It is also the job of the listener to make the communication process interesting. For example, if we just take, when I asked you to respond to me, when I asked you, when I said, what will we mean by communication? Just imagine if no one responded and sat quiet. Okay? Only because you responded, that also inspired me to again take up or continue further. If nobody responds, maybe the way I continue with my communication as a sender may differ. There may be two things. One feedback which I would have received is that I have to put in more efforts to make this process more interesting. Or if I go in a negative way, maybe I would just think that the listeners are not interested, and then maybe I will have to just continue and then just finish off, okay, by just presenting whatever I have to. So the listener also has an equal role in making the process, communication process, interesting to the speaker as well. Okay? So how well we listen impacts the effectiveness and also the quality of the relationship between the sender and the receiver both. So we need to listen. Why do we need to listen? The first thing is to obtain information. And the second thing is it is not just enough if we receive the information. We have to even comprehend the information. We will have to learn it. We will have to remember it for any future situations in which we may need it. Many times we also listen in order to get entertainment. Just think of the way many times we like to listen to music. Many times we like to listen to stories. Okay? That is the purpose of that listening is for entertainment than to gather information. Now, many times when we are just listening, we will think of two persons listening to a song. One person may be listening with the purpose of getting entertainment in his leisure time. If another person is listening to the song with the purpose of learning that particular song, then the way he listens will be entirely different than the person who is listening to the song for entertainment. Okay? There is a difference between the attention which he gives. There is a difference between the way he, spends his time while he's listening. If we are listening to entertainment, maybe we don't tend to give attention to very minute details in the song. But if I'm sitting to learn that particular song, then maybe I will be taking it down. Maybe the lyrics I will write down. Maybe I will be giving attention to very fine details, like where the singer is going to a high pitch, where the singer is going to a low pitch. And if I know music, maybe I will be trying to write down the swaras of the music. Okay, so we just see how each listener differs, and the attention he gives, the concentration he pays differs from listener to listener, and that is based on the purpose of our listening. So the purpose of listening is very important when we think of the listening skills. Now, I will just give you an audio message. Just listen to this. Okay? It's a story, very short story. Maybe I will be just taking a minute. So just listen to it carefully. Now I read the story. I'm not displaying it because we know if we are seeing and hearing together, then again the skills of reading come in. So I just want you to give your attention to listening skills. So I'm not displaying the message. I'm just going to read it. Just listen to it. Okay? Now the story is goes like this. Kalu was a hard-working gardener of the royal garden. He was saving money for his old age and kept his savings in a secret hidden place. Kalu went crying to Birbal one morning and told him that all his savings, which were around 1,000 gold coins, had been stolen. He further told Birbal that he kept his money by digging a hole under the pear tree in the royal garden, as he used to work in the royal garden the whole day, and it made him easy for him to watch over the money. Now Birbal assured him that he will solve the case. Then Birbal thought, if anyone had dug up under the tree, only then they will come to know about the savings which was hidden there. Now Birbal summoned all the Vaidyas and Hakims, who were the ancient time doctors, and asked them if any part of the pear tree works as a medicine, because only those people had access to the garden. Now most of them refused, but one of them told him that the fruit of the pear tree is good for health, and the flowers and leaves are not much helpful. Okay? Then there was another Vaidya who told the Birbal that recently he made a paste from some herbs and mixed it with the paste made of the roots of the pear tree. Then he said that he had got a patient who was named Seth Hazarimal, who was suffering from jaundice. This Seth was asked to come, and Birbal inquired about him. Okay? And he agreed that he was cured by eating the paste of the herbs and the roots of a pear tree. And when asked, he told him that the Seth's servant had brought the root from the tree. So Seth Hazarimal's servant was summoned before Birbal. Then he was found guilty because of his suspicious behavior, and he admitted that he had stolen the gold coins. So thus the Birbal found who the thief was, who had stolen the gold coins, and told Kalu not to hide his money in such an unsafe place. Okay, this is a very short story. Now you have listened to this story. Now what I want you to do is, there are certain questions which I will be posing. I want you to just write down the answers for these. There are around 10 to 11 questions. Very simple questions. I want you to write down the answers to this. And at the end, we will ask one or two of you to answer those questions. Okay. Now this is the story. The questions. What was the occupation of Kalu? I want you to answer it. At the end, we will take the answers. The second question, where was Kalu working? The third question, what was his savings? Just one word answers. Whom did Kalu approach for help? Where did Kalu hide his savings? The sixth question. Why did he hide it in that place? Whom did Birbal inquire first? What was the name of the patient? What was the patient suffering from? The paste of the medicine was made from roots of which tree? Now at the end, what did Birbal advise Kalu? With all this, if you are able to give, I have not told you the title of the story. If you can give a title to this story, what will be your title? Okay. We will go with the questions. Anybody who are willing to answer can just raise your hand. Yeah. Yeah, Dr. Mamata. The first question, what was the occupation of Kalu? All of you just listen, we will see.
Gardener.
Yeah, he was a gardener. Where was Kalu working?
In a royal garden.
Yeah, Mr. Ningaraju was in the royal garden, correct. What was his savings?
1,000 coins.
Yeah, 1,000 gold coins, right? Then whom did Kalu approach for help?
Birbal.
Yeah, Birbal. And where did he hide his savings?
Under pear tree.
Under pear tree.
Yeah, under the pear tree. And why did he hide it there?
He can
For
oversee.
saving purpose.
So that he can take care.
He can oversee while working.
Yeah, because he was working in the royal garden and then he could see it every time. Okay. And whom did Birbal inquire first?
Vaidyas and
Vaidyas and Hakims. And what was the patient's name?
Hazarinand.
Yeah, it was Seth Hazarimal. Yeah.
Seth.
Then what was the patient suffering from?
Jaundice.
Right, jaundice. And what was the medicine's paste of the medicine was made from the tree root?
Root of the pear tree.
A pear tree.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, where did he gave an advice at the end? What advice did Birbal give?
Not to hide in such places.
Okay, not to hide money in unsafe places was the
Yes.
Yes. Now, all of you got all the questions right? Yeah, Dr. Shivprasad?
Yes, madam. I got all 11 right.
All 11 right.
No, 10 correct. I got 10 right answers, ma'am.
Okay, which was wrong?
Saving the tree under the pear tree. Saving the money under pear tree.
Okay. Dr. Saroja has got 10 right. Which was wrong?
Ma'am.
Yeah, Dr. Mamta.
Out of 11, 10, ma'am, 7th one is not written. 7th,
okay, you didn't answer. Okay.
Yes, both of them.
Okay. If you are able to answer so many, then it means that you have good listening skills actually. Okay. with listening, you have tried to even understand and comprehend the whole thing. You also have remembered minute details as the name of the tree, the name of the patient, and the name of the, the illness he was suffering from. Okay? And then, what was the title of the story you have given now?
Truth always wins.
Truth always wins. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Now, why we try to give I did not give you the title in the beginning was I did not want to prepare your mind to what I will be presenting. Okay. But when you have given the title, the brain processes all the information. It is trying to summarize the whole thing and then is giving the title. Okay. So when we are listening, and listening skills includes all this. When we are listening, if we are trying to give attention to all small details, and at the end, if we are trying to summarize the whole thing, we are trying to analyze what all is there in order to give it a title. If we do all this, and if we are note taking, if we do this, then our listening, we have a purpose for our listening. Okay? So then our listening will be good. The communication process will be effective and also interesting. Okay? Now, suppose instead of just telling you the story, just imagine I had told you the title before. Now, I had given a title called Birbal the Detective. Okay? Just imagine before telling the story, if I had told you the heading or the title of the story, then maybe your mind would be prepared to receive the story. You would have thought and you would have known that it is the story of Birbal, and you would have known that there is something where Birbal is playing the role of a detective. Means giving a title prepares our minds to receive some information. So the listener can summarize something and then can look forward to what type of information I'm getting. The second thing I could have done is I could have given you the questions before. Okay? If I would have told you the questions before, then while listening, you would have still given more, attention to the answers for these questions. Okay? So listening skills, and if we are going to read something, many of them you would have seen, instead of starting to read the whole thing, they will go through the headings or the subheadings first. And then some of them look at the summary first and then we'll go. The actual process of reading is we should start from the beginning and read the summary at the end. That is what we expect. But many of them while reading, they will go to the summary first, read the summary. I have seen students, especially from students of KSOU Open University, when their learning material or the self-instructional material is given to them, before starting to read the unit, they will read the summary first. They will read the questions which is given under check your progress or questions given under the unit and exercise. When they read that and then start reading the unit, they will know on what they have to concentrate. Okay? So this is again one tactics of the listener or one tactics of the person who is reading the information or reading the text. Okay? So all these are different tactics or skills which the listener can devise on their own, or some listening skills which they can adopt when they are listening. Now coming to, I told you the original title I had given was Birbal the Detective. Now, are you a good listener? Yes, we think that we are very good listeners. But when we look into the Dale's cone of experience, research has suggested that when we are just listening, means we are not hearing, we are not looking in the video, we are not reading the text, but when we are just listening, after many days, they say that we will remember only 25 to 50% of what we have heard too. Now you have answered all these questions, okay? But if you, maybe after some days, after a year or something, you will, even if you remember the story, if I ask you these certain small details, maybe you will remember only 50% or 25% of it. Okay, so that is what research says. If we are only listening, even being a good listener, I will remember only 25 to 50% of the message which I have listened to. Now, when we are listening to a presentation, how much of time are we paying attention to? Now, this was a very short story. It took just a minute. But if we are listening to a person speaking for an hour or something, okay? Now, research says that when we are listening to a speaker for a certain amount of time, we will be giving only quarter of the time or half of the time of the presentation. We will be giving our full attention of our listening. This is what research says. Okay? And many times we also would have noticed that when we are sitting for listening a presentation, many times we would have, maybe after 15 to 20 minutes or half an hour, our attention would have gone to some other, even sometimes if our mind is black and we are not thinking of anything, we would not have paid attention to the information which has been sent by the listener, sender. Okay, after some time we come back to it, then we will think, okay, we have missed that part of the information because our brains just wild away from there. Okay, so many times we also noticed that we would have missed certain part of information when we are listening to a presentation. This I am telling you of only when we are listening, only when our sense of hearing is being engaged when we are listening. Okay, not when we are also looking at a video. It's only being a good listener. This is what happens. Okay. Now, surely, if we are able to improve our listening skills and if we become better listeners, we can improve our productivity or improve our work. We can also improve our ability to influence other people. We can improve our skills of persuading and negotiating people to agree with our argument. We can also avoid conflicts and misunderstandings in any situation if we have good listening skills. We can improve our relationship with other people, maybe with our colleagues, it can be with our family members. So listening skills, improving our listening skills is quite important. So good listening skills, they say, is the key for any workplace success. Listening skills also reflects on our image and also our personality. Just think when there is a conversation between 3 to 4 people. Okay, if one is speaking and the other two are just listening to it, one person who is listening very attentively and also is showing the speaker that he is listening attentively creates an image of himself. There is another person who is listening but doesn't show the sender that he's listening, okay? But he's just reading something and then, or he's watching a movie, or he's watching what calls he has received on his mobile, okay? But in spite of that, even if he's listening, but he also creates a different image of his personality. So listening skills also includes the way we respond and also the way we show the sender that we are interested in the message, okay? And we also exhibit that we are attentively listening to it, maybe by nodding our heads, maybe by not attending or to other tasks while we are listening. Okay? So all this forms a part of our listening skill. Now, there is a difference between hearing and listening. Many of the times we say, yeah, I heard it. Sometimes we say, yeah, I listened to the music. Okay? I heard the sound. I listened to your speech. Okay? So there is a difference between these two words, hearing and listening. Listening is not just being quiet while someone else is speaking. It's not that somebody is speaking and just quietly I'm sitting. It doesn't mean that I'm listening. Okay? So to listen, we have to put in a conscious effort. Okay? So it's not just speaking. Listening also needs effort to be put in by the listener. Effort not just to hear, but efforts to take in the information. After taking in the information, trying to interpret it. This is where that semantic triangle comes in. When we are trying to interpret the message, trying to digest and understand or comprehend the message. It's not just understand. If we just understand the message and then leave it off. We have to retain the message and we have to remember the message. If we have to remember the message, then we have to devise ways of remembering it. Many times I have heard people say that I read the whole, understand the whole thing, but after some time when somebody asks me something about it, I don't remember. I don't remember some details. Okay, like let me say the meaning of the name of the person. Okay? Even if they tell the story, maybe the names they will not remember. Okay, so while listening, conscious efforts have to be put in where we will have to devise ways of remembering what we are listening. So listening skills also includes devising ways. These ways of devising this remembering tactics varies from person to person. Some may take notes while listening to, and then some may just take down points while they are listening. Okay, some may write down the whole thing. Some may put it in the form of a flow chart. Some may write down only the important names which they will have, because they know what they will be failing in remembering. So they will note down only that. So these different tactics of this note taking also differs from person to person. That also comes under the listening skill. Now, listening should happen with active involvement of the mind and also hearing with the senses. So it's not just enough to listen to the words. A good listener should also pay attention to the non-verbal communication of the speaker. Non-verbal communication, which includes the facial expressions, the gestures, the movement of the speaker, the head position of the speaker, the posture which this speaker either stands or sits, and then the hand gestures, okay, the way he uses different materials in front of him, okay, all these non-verbal communications, even the position of the feet of the speaker also communicates. The eyebrows communicate. Okay, every part of the individual unknowingly communicates when a person is uttering some words. How much we are used to this non-verbal communication, I have seen many of them, even when they are not seen on the, if you just speak to the anchors on radio, they know that the person sitting on the opposite side of the radio is not able to see the anchor, but still they say if they have to effectively speak over or anchor the program on the radio, automatically non-verbal communication or non-verbal gestures are also used, though they know that the opposite person is not able to see them. So non-verbal communication is a very important part of communication, and it comes automatically. Many a times, even if we do not believe the words, we can believe the non-verbal communication, because non-verbal communication speaks the truth. Now, International Listening Association tries to define this term listening. It defines listening as the process of receiving, constructing meaning from, and responding to spoken and as well as non-verbal message. So this listening, first thing it says that it is a process, and other three things which is involved on the part of the receiver or the listener is receiving the message, constructing the meaning from the message. This is what the semantic triangle I tried to explain in the beginning. Constructing meaning. When I said orange, some constructed the meaning as the color, some constructed the meaning as the fruit. Okay? So constructing the meaning from, and also the way we respond to this spoken message. It can be oral message, it can also be the non-verbal or the body gesture, hand movements, whatever the speaker is trying to communicate, the way we respond to it. Now, this listening process has 5 stages. I will not go into detail of these 5 stages. I just try to name them. Receiving, the first stage, understanding or comprehending, then trying to remember it. Then here comes the analytical process of our mind, evaluating the message. Okay. Then after evaluating message, giving the feedback to the or responding to the sender of the message. But only when we give a feedback is the communication process complete. It is not that we just took the message, we remembered it, we evaluated it, left it at that part. Okay. If we leave it at that stage, then if there is no feedback, the whole communication process cycle will not be complete. Only when the feedback is taken by the sender, then the communication process will be complete and effective. Now, there are different types of listening. Two main categories of listening which we categorize is discriminative listening and comprehensive listening. These are the two foundations of the other different subtypes of listening. What is discriminative listening? Discriminative listening is the most basic form of listening. This develops at a very early stage, and it is said to develop even before birth in the womb of the mother itself. Okay? It does not involve understanding of the meaning of the words. Okay? If I just utter a word, even if the person doesn't know the meaning of the word, he would have heard to it. And you ask him to repeat the word, he will repeat it because he will be able to discriminate between the sounds I have produced when uttering the word. Okay? But this is just merely the different sounds that are produced. He has attended to, not the meaning of the word. When we take early childhood, even they do not know the meaning of the word, but they try to distinguish between different sounds which they listen to or which they hear to. For example, they will try to distinguish between the voice of the father and the mother. They will try to distinguish between the voice of a cat, of a dog, of a cow. Okay? So this is how they try to make a distinction of the sounds which the young child listens to. So discriminative listening develops through childhood and even into the adulthood also. As the child grows and gains experience, the ability to distinguish between sounds also develops. This is where when we say listening, and then when we are trying to develop listening skills in children, music is said to be very effective when we are trying to develop discriminative skills. This is where when we train children in learning music, especially classical music, we will be training them to give attention to small variations in the sounds. Okay, so he can recognize different sounds and even very subtle differences in sounds. This is fundamental to understand what the sound means, and later on, this can be used for comprehension of messages or understanding the messages in more advanced forms of listening. Now, for example, when the speaker is speaking, and then even if he utters the same word, but he utters it differently when he wants to communicate the emotion of angry, and then if he is stressed, if he is happy, okay, and if he is anxious of something, okay, all this under different emotions, the way he utters the word will be different. We should be able to distinguish between what emotions he is uttering the word with. This is where discriminative listening comes. Then voices of a male and a female, voices of young and old, and even the tone of the voice also helps us in understanding the message. When we have to interpret the tone with which the voice is being sent, this is where discriminative listening skills come into play. The second basic form of the category of listening is the comprehensive listening. Comprehensive listening is a higher form than the discriminative listening, but it is also fundamental to the other different subtypes. Now, this comprehensive listening involves understanding of the message that are being communicated. Okay, so comprehensive listening is where the understanding of the message comes in. It requires two things. One is the appropriate vocabulary. Okay, the words. Vocabulary is nothing but the what is the heap of words which we know, and also the different language skills. This comprehensive listening is quite complicated when compared to the discriminative listening. because if there are two people listening to something, two of them can understand the same message in different ways. And this will become more complicated especially when we are trying to speak in a large group setting like the classroom. And if we are using very rare vocabulary and if we are using complex sentences, these form barriers to comprehensive listening. That is why we always say that when we are speaking, most of the times we have to make it very clear, concise, and simple sentences to be used, and a very common vocabulary to be used. You might have heard to Mr. Shashi Tharoor speaking many a times. Okay, if you sit and listen to what he is speaking, I know he has a very good vocabulary, but many a times when I am listening to him, most of the times there is a necessity for a dictionary, because I will have to search the meaning of some words. His vocabulary is so vast, and he uses very rare words. Okay? But when we have to, as teachers, when we are communicating, then we have to use very common vocabulary and simple sentences. And also as a listener, when we are going for comprehensive listening, attention should be given to non-verbal communication, like tone of the voice, the gesture, the body language. This also helps us in comprehending the message. With this, we have some specific listening types. I will not go with detail. The name of them itself is self-explanatory. The basic ones are discriminative and comprehensive. Then the other ones are active listening, informational listening, where we listen to only gather information, critical listening, where we are trying to, if you are watching a movie, there are two things. If you are trying to gather information, then the way we watch is different. If we have to, we are sitting to criticize something, maybe the technology used, maybe the people who have acted in it, maybe the dialogues written. Okay? So the critical listening way is itself different. We also have the empathetic listening or the therapeutic listening, which is mostly followed by counselors. And then we also have appreciative listening when we are listening to music, stories, etc. Okay? So these are the different types of listening. So the purpose of listening in all these five types of listening is different. And the skills required for these listenings also are different. I will not go in detail with this, but these are the specific listening types. So there are different measures to improve listening. One thing, all of us, most of us follow them, that we have to remain silent when somebody is speaking. We have to have interest in it. We have to empathize with the speaker, means put ourselves in the place of the speaker. Okay? So maintain eye contact when we are listening. We always tell the speaker to maintain eye contact, but even the listener also has to try to make eye contact, taking notes, concentrating, okay, and then getting involved entirely. These are all the measures to improve, avoid outside noise, and then trying to paraphrase and summarize what the speaker is saying. This is what we did when we tried to give the title to the story. We have tried to summarize the whole thing in one particular title. Also avoiding prejudice and bias when we sit to listen to the speaker, and then giving attention to non-verbal cues, okay, and then avoiding multitasking, especially when we are sitting over a virtual mode of conversation, and then at the end asking open-ended questions. Now coming to speaking skills. Okay. Sociologist Andrew Zachary in his study says that oral communication skills was the first skill, the number one skill that college graduates found it useful when they went into the business world. So finely honed speaking skills are vivacious to person's success when it comes to either personal, academic, or the work life. Okay? Speaking can be both formal and informal. When we are speaking to our family and close acquaintance, it is informal speaking. When we are speaking in business and academic situations, it is a formal speaking. Now, there are four components of speaking skills which we have to try to improve when we have to improve speaking skills. The first one is comprehension, okay? And then the second is grammar, that is the structure of the sentence, appropriateness of the grammatical structure. The vocabulary, that is the appropriate choice of the words. Then pronunciation, because pronunciation plays a very important role. For example, there was only 2 days back, I heard to a person, he said Kottamari, okay? When I listened to the word Kottamari, I thought it is the name of some person with a surname. But what he intended to communicate to me was Kottambari Soppu. Okay, that is what is the thing. But the way he uttered it, I could not get it. I thought it was the name of some person with a surname. So the pronunciation also plays a very important role when we are speaking. And the fluency of the speech, with ability to speak with very much ease, and also fluently without any pauses. Not that there is no pause, but giving appropriate pauses. Okay? That is what is required when we speak. And speaking should be audience-centered activity, not the speaker-centered activity. When we are thinking, whenever somebody asks you to speak, the first thing which has to come to our mind is who is the target population? Whether it is a child, whether it is a teenager, whether it is an adult, whether it is a professional, if professional, what sort of a professional they are in. Okay, so when we are thinking of speaking, the first thing is who are the audience. So that is where we think of audience analysis. Audience analysis is the process of gathering information about the audience. What is their need? What they do not, what is the expectation of the audience? What is their value, attitude, belief, opinion? All this, what they need from listening to my speech. That is what is the audience analysis which the speaker has to do at the planning stage itself. So these are the different steps which we can take to improve speaking skills. I think that this, I will be just sending it on the PPT. You can just go through. Most of you as teachers would be following all this. First thing is not to be nervous, and then to use effective voice, to use non-verbal communication effectively, to concentrate on the main points when we are speaking, to make the presentation lively and interesting. Okay, and then writing and rehearsing with the outline notes when we are speaking. The outline notes has to reflect the whole notes. That is how we have to prepare. Then looking and having an eye contact with the audience. It's not just having an eye contact, it will also to try to take the feedback of them through our eye contact, to judge what the listener is thinking to me when they are listening to me. And then to make a very strong ending. Making a very strong ending when we are speaking or giving a presentation is very important, because many times, even if I have not covered many points, when we make a strong ending to it, we are arousing a curiosity at the level of the listener. So even if we have missed out something, the listener will have a curiosity to go in to look for more information about it. So making a strong ending for a presentation is very important. Okay, and hand gauges. Okay, there was one activity here, but it will take a long time, so I'll just skip it. Now I move on to the different skill called the reading skill. Now, Fran Lebowitz says, think before you speak. This is very commonly heard. Think before you speak. Going forward, he says, even before you think, read before you think. Okay, this is where this shows the importance of reading. So today a reader, tomorrow a leader. This is what Margaret Fuller said. These quotes give us the importance of a reading. And then research has shown that 88% of the successful people in this world spend at least 30 minutes per day in reading books. Okay, at least 30 minutes per day reading something new. Then Bill Gates has said in an interview to the New York Times that he reads at least 50 books in a year. Okay, so reading is very essential when it comes to learning. Okay? And then reading includes perception, recognition, association, understanding, organization of the material which we read, and also finding meaning in what we read. These are the things, skills which we have to acquire if we have to acquire reading skills. Okay. And reading is a very active process. And there is one important or a very catchy quote which caught my attention, which Goodman opines. He says, reading is a long distance discussion. Okay, this I was very interested in the term long distance discussion between the reader and the author, because the author and the reader, author is the sender, but he doesn't ever meet the reader at all. But he keeps a target population in mind. Keeping that, he writes. And the reader understands the author even without looking at him. Many times we wouldn't even know who the author is, but we have a communication, we try to understand what the writer says. So reading is a long distance discussion between the reader and the author. Now, reading skill encompasses key aspects. What are the other skills which are required for developing reading skills? Literacy skills, which include comprehension skills, fluency, vocabulary, and different strategies which the readers will adopt in order to interpret and find meaning from the text. So if we are reading, all of them do not read at the same pace. All of them do not understand whatever is being written. Okay? So each of them will take or adopt their own tactics in order to find meaning from the text. Now, there are different techniques of effective reading. There are different types of reading skills: intensive reading, summarizing, extensive reading, skimming, scanning, paraphrasing. Now, what is intensive reading? Intensive reading is a type of reading which is taken up by students, for example, who are taking up an examination. They go into very fine details also. When you were listening to the story I read, you were intensively listening. That is why you could pick up every fine details there. So intensive reading is like that. And what is summarizing? Summarizing is trying to just scan over the whole material and try to pick up the summary of what we are reading. Extensive reading is only for the purpose of leisure. Reading vastly. We just want to read many books, read story books. Okay? That is reading for entertainment is extensive reading. Skimming. That is, if we are trying to just, let me say, I'm keeping a particular word in my mind. Let me say, I will give you a page, ask you to search for a word. How many times the word Kalu has come in the story? Then what will you do? You will not read the whole passage. You will not try to understand. You will be just skimming the whole passage to see how many times the word Kalu has come. That is what is skimming. This is also one type of a reading skill, trying to skim and then search for words. If we see search for frequently occurring words, we will be getting some information from what that author is trying to communicate, what is importantly being conveyed to us. That is what is skimming. Scanning also is one where we will be scanning through the whole. Sometimes we will say, I have not read the whole text, I just scanned through the whole thing. Scanning means just looking at the headings and subheadings. Even by looking at the headings and subheadings, we will know what is there in that. We will be getting some information on what is there in the written text. Paraphrasing is, again, we will go in detail, read the whole thing, try to put it in our own words and write the summary. That is what is paraphrasing. This is also a reading skill which will help us to remember what we have read. So these are the 6 types of reading skills which we have to acquire. Coming to the writing skills, we know when we try to write something, we write something and then this is put our name below. Then as soon as we see our name in whatever we have written, we get a feeling of accomplishment. Okay? So writing, we say, is giving something a permanent existence. Even if we are not there, whatever is written exists permanently. Okay? It is our footprint which will be there always. So writing skills, again, many civilizations have benefited by writing. They are able to communicate their history, their culture, their knowledge, even when they are not there. Okay? So different forms of writing, written communication. Script writing is one, where we try to communicate in the form of dialogues with the help of writing dialogues for different personalities in a story. Paragraph writing is one. Letter writing, which can be either formal or informal. Then essay writing can be. Then report writing has a different form of writing. Academic writing comes under this report writing. Then critical writing has a different form of writing. And writing electronic mail message also has and it has its own etiquettes, because the same message sent by different people over email has a different effect on the reader. Okay? And the way we write an email for a formal message is different, and informally sending an email is different. Okay, so these are the different forms of written communication. So writing enables us to reach a larger group and from a distant places over time. Okay, so if we are able to write judiciously in a planned and thoughtful way, then we will be able to live in the minds of our readers forever. Okay, so this writing skill also is very important as academicians to us, especially knowing how to write a paragraph, knowing how to write a report, knowing how to write an academic text. Okay, there are different set of rules when we have to follow when we have to write these forms of writing. So I try to just introduce you to all these different forms. Certain common writing styles are descriptive writing style, where we try to give a very vivid picture of the characters and events we are trying to describe. Then we have the narrative writing style, which gives a clear storyline, or when we are giving a novel or a story. We have a persuasive writing style, where we try to emotionally connect with the reader. Okay, we try to convince the reader. That is what advertisements do. Advertisements adopt this persuasive writing style. We have the expository writing style, when we are trying to explain something. When we are writing the textbooks, we are going to take up this expository writing style. When we are going to write the research reports, we are taking this expository writing style. Okay? And there are different principles of effective writing. This I will not go in detail because of shortage of time. That is short sentences, and then using more pronouns than nouns, and then knowing the audience before we write, giving clear and direct instructions when we are writing, adopting headings and subheadings, and most of the times listing out points when we are writing. Okay, so all these are the principles of effective writing. And then this is a picture which gives us the whole idea of what we have to do when we are trying to adopt these productive skills of speaking and writing. We have to give attention to the syntax, that is the sentence structure, the content, the relevance and the clarity and the logic and the originality and the order of content presentation, and how we are getting the ideas, how we are starting it, okay, all that. And then paying attention to the reader or the audience, and then paying attention to the purpose with which we are writing. Then the organization of the paragraphs, the topics, the headings, the subheadings, and the unity and the linking statements from paragraph to paragraph, okay, even while speaking as well as writing, and different mechanics of writing like the handwriting, the spelling, the punctuation, all that comes in. And even the grammar, where I told you use of more pronouns than nouns, and then the rules of using the verbs, the rules of using the articles, okay, all this has to be followed when we are using the grammar when we are speaking and writing. Okay, I think with this, I have at least tried to develop your interest towards these 4 learning skills. That is LSRW: listening, speaking, reading, and writing, which are most important and form the pillars of our communication process, and also the importance of the listener also in the communication process. Okay, I think we have passed our time. So for 2 or 3 minutes, any questions if anybody has, I'll just take it. Okay, if there are no questions, will we conclude? Okay. Thanks to all of you for your patient hearing, and I really enjoyed being with all of you. But here on my screen, I could only see a very few people because with the presentation. And I know I was telling about maintaining eye contact, but still, I don't know, suddenly there was some problem with my camera. I'm trying to on that, but it was on for only a few moments, and then the camera is switching off. I think so that is where I could not play the video. So we have missed out on that. But thanks to all of you. Okay, It was a very nice time spending with all of you. And good interaction also with you. Yeah.
On behalf of HRDC and on behalf of all the participants, I would like to extend vote of thanks, Madam. Shall I?
Yeah, Dr. Suvarna.
Yeah. Madam, really you have given very extensive and extended information, and every bit of information you have given us, and you have tried to involve us in this program actively. Like kids, we participated in that story and listening to it and reacting to it, and even that automobile, no? It's really a wonderful concept where we will think and take and in a different sense, and that gave us insight into us, made us to think. So whenever you put some word and then put orange, no, we were thinking in a different way. So there must be something else. So when you ask such simple questions, so like that, I have kept us very active and made us to contribute to ourselves, and some creative responses were there because of the tactics which you have used. Really, the sessions was very wonderful, and thank you, Madam. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Suvarna, and thanks to all of you for being active listeners and also making this process of this transaction with both of us very inspiring for me also. Thanks to all of you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, madam.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you,
Thank you, madam.